okay with that, Mr. Howe?
Okay. Okay, we're good.
We're live.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Business Roundtable discussion of the Baltimore County Economic Recovery Subcabinet. My name is Leonard Howie. I have the privilege of serving as the director of the county's Department of Economic and Workforce Development, as well as the chair of this recovery subcabinet. I'm joined here today by many colleagues, many of whom are actually subcabinet members, and especially by my colleague Elizabeth Sachs, the director of the government reform and strategic initiatives. Together, we will use the time we have today to hear directly from you, your observations and recommendations of what your county government needs to know about the key issues you are facing as we recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. And a special thank to you, Senior Policy Manager Jasmine Clemens, for executing the intellectual work behind the entire recovery subcabinet process. Today is the first of 3 economic recovery discussions. The next discussion will focus on the recovery of individuals and families. That will take place on March 31st at 4 p.m. The final discussion will focus on the county's workforce and the workforce issues, and will take place on April 1st at 12 p.m. In each roundtable, we will hear from invited stakeholders about their vision for Baltimore County's recovery. Today's roundtable is being live streamed on Baltimore County Government's YouTube and Facebook pages. It is also being broadcast on BCG TV. Residents, you can submit your economic recovery comments and suggestions to recovery@baltimorecountymd.gov. We are joined for the first part of today's conversation by our county executive, Mr. John Olszewski. County Executive Olszewski is no stranger to anyone on this panel and has been the driving force in leading how our government has responded to this pandemic. From being out in front of informing the county where we are with respect to vaccines, or communicating the sometimes difficult news regarding our open for business status, or for his work that he just concluded with budget town hall public forums in all 7 council districts that presented really what was an unparalleled level of transparency to the county's budget process. We are all encouraged and proud to have a leader like our county executive who genuinely wants to hear from those who are most impacted by our decisions. So, Mr. County Executive, the floor is yours.
Well, thanks, Leonard. Good morning, and really, it's good to see so many people virtually. I want to thank you, Director Howie, for the introduction and for your leadership. We are beginning to plan our next steps of recovery, and I want to thank each and every one of you for being here and being such an important part of that conversation. You know, as we think about our recovery from this pandemic, it's really important that we come together to find these solutions and have these answers. We believe in Baltimore County that recovery works best when it's done in partnership. So we look forward to working with you to chart that course forward. It really is hard to believe that this crisis here began almost 1 year ago today. Last Thursday marked the county's first anniversary of the first resident lost their life to COVID. Since then, we've lost over 1,300 of our neighbors and loved ones. And we know that thousands of residents lost their jobs or their businesses. We've seen over 245,000 unemployment claims in Baltimore County alone since the beginning of the pandemic. And we've, just more generally seen immense needs across our communities throughout this crisis. And we believe in local government here in Baltimore County that we have an obligation to step up and help meet those basic needs. And that has been our primary focus since the beginning. We have, in partnership with the county public schools and our public library, given out over 15 million meals with other organizations like the Food Bank, H&S Bakery, and our local farmers. And as we transition into recovery, we know that our food distribution team is looking at ways to shift towards a smaller program to support great nonprofits that are out there addressing food insecurity. Our eviction prevention program has already pushed over $5 million out the door to help over 1,400 families stay in their homes. And thanks to nearly a $25 million grant from the U.S. Treasury Department, we know that we'll be able to expand that work further in the months ahead. Looking ahead, we also know that we're working hard to close the digital divide. We've already provided 6 months of Comcast Internet Essentials to 11,000 households. We want to expand that work and address the digital divide for our seniors as well. We've created a program in Baltimore County to help low-income families pay for childcare, especially important with those who've had school-age children dealing with remote learning. We have a similar program to support county employees with school-age children, and doing, again, all that we can to help our neighbors get to the other side of this crisis. We're also extending significant support for our businesses, providing over $21 million across over 1,300 grant programs. Over $10 million of that have gone to our restaurants. We've helped nearly 300 businesses install equipment to prevent the spread. Over $4 million as part of a small business relief grant program, and over half of all of our grants have been awarded to minority and women-owned firms. I want to thank Director Howie and his team. This is about 20 times the usual workload of grant applications and volume processing. And we've done that quickly and efficiently without any additional staff resources. But we are, as the director said, transitioning from responding to COVID to leading a recovery and thinking about what a return to life looks like. And so as we are rebuilding, we want to make sure we're being really concerted in our efforts to address the disparities that have always been there, but that have been magnified by this pandemic. We don't want to just rebuild our economy. We want to improve upon it. We want to have a recovery that's holistic, and we want to take bold actions to strengthen our communities, support our residents, and address those inequities in our community. So we want to put an emphasis on those who've been left behind, our small businesses, our independent businesses, our main streets, vulnerable communities, targeting resources to places that were hardest hit, like restaurants, movie theaters, event venues. We know that industries like hospitality and tourism have bore the brunt of the economic impact, so we want to think creatively about how we support them. Continuing to work with regional partners to develop a robust tourism strategy to highlight some really incredible assets right here in Baltimore County. But we are putting all options on the table to support our businesses and our individuals, and we want to make sure we're moving forward. So currently, we're in the midst of our budget preparations, and thanks to our congressional delegation here in Maryland, we are expecting a significant infusion of additional direct federal aid. Your input is critical as we develop our plans and budgets for that recovery. So to that end, that's what this is all about. I want to hear from you. Our team wants to hear from you this morning. Where should we be focusing our resources? What gaps are out there, and what innovative ideas do you have that we might not already be thinking about? So as I said at the beginning, recovery works best in partnership, and it's going to take all of us to work together to plan a successful recovery. So with that, I want to thank you for your partnership. I want to thank all the members of the subcabinet for their efforts, and I look forward to planning our recovery together. So with that, I'll turn things back over to you, Director Howie. Thank you again.
All right, thank you, Mr. County Executive. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. We have 3 question areas that we'd like to get your feedback on. But before you answer, if you could please just take a minute to tell us your name and organization you are representing. The first question is, as each day goes by, we get closer to fully reopening the Maryland economy. But just because reopening is on the horizon, we know that many challenges will remain. As you think about your business or about the businesses you work with or represent, what are the biggest challenges that you expect to face in the coming months? And what challenges do you believe will persist over a longer time frame? Let's get started with Ms. Anita Hicks.
Okay, good morning. I'm Anita Hicks, and I am with Gray & Son, and we are located in Timonium, Maryland. We are a construction company. So I think the largest challenge that we face is a skilled workforce. There are a lot of people that want to work in construction, but they don't have equipment, they don't have experience on a lot of the heavy equipment that we need. We do the earthwork, so we work with a lot of heavy equipment, and also we need our skilled force to be more skilled in the soft skills as well. Communication is a big challenge, and we work on those team building skills, a lot of those soft skills. So those are some of the challenging areas that we are working with right now.
Interesting. That just what you noted is going to be, I'm sure, a primary topic at the April 1st roundtable discussion. And I'm sure that that's music to the workforce area's ears to hear that you as an employer need skilled workers. So
Absolutely.
absolutely,
Thank
thank you for that. Um, Karen Smith.
She's on mute.
You're
Oh,
muted, Karen.
I'm sorry. I'm Karen Smith. I'm with the Owings Mills Corporate Roundtable, and we represent over 30 businesses in the Owings Mills area, variety of corporate, nonprofit, and small businesses. And when I reached out to our members, one of the biggest things that they're concerned about is, even though we're moving to reopening, we're concerned that a lot of companies are going to find that working from home has been a benefit, and we're worried that we're going to have a lot of empty, vacant corporate buildings, as well as, a lot of people are going to still work from home and not come to restaurants and be out, visiting some of our smaller businesses.
so vacancies are a big problem. I'm curious, is there any component of the commercial real estate market that you see is actually booming?
We are not finding that.
You're not finding that. Okay, thank you. Jessica Hack.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for to be here. My name is Jessica Hack. I work with UFCW Local 27, and we represent the union members here in the Maryland area. So one of the things we have noted during this time is most of our workforce has not been able to work from home. They have been on the front line, whether it be in healthcare, gaming, or in grocery retail. So one of the challenges that we face with reopening is making sure our members have access to not just testing, but vaccinations. A lot of our folks have not been able to access any of the child care grant money that they need to make sure they're able to report to work. And the time that they've spent out of work while recovering, either through quarantine, caring for themselves or dependent children. So it's really been a challenge keeping them able to work and healthy, and also making sure they have access to vaccines and testing.
Okay, access to vaccines and testing. Call it audible here real quick. Mr. County Executive, based off of the first three comments that you've heard, is there anything that you want a little bit more information on? The first one was a skilled workforce. Second one, high vacancy rates in the commercial sector, and then lastly, the access to the true healthcare remedies, or at least vaccination and testing that's out there to help get people back to work. Any of those three?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Leonard, a lot of this is, I think understanding, and this is where the subcabinet really, I think, can be successful as a partner with, the folks we're working with out there, thinking through, federal, state, and local resources, right? We in the local government are sort of the end of the supply chain when it comes to, we get whatever vaccinations the feds hand down to the state and down to us, but we can sort of provide a window into what we're able to do. If there are gaps, though, we should be able to work with, especially as we're entering into later phases. How do we work with leaders like Jessica and create those opportunities in those pipelines? How do we work with business corridor leaders like Karen and say, okay, what are there particular industries within that? So like just taking things to that next layer and then coupling whatever programs might be coming from federal and state. The state legislators they're passing a bunch of stuff, mapping out what's available, and then sort of asking the question, and that's why these roundtables are so helpful. How do we sort of step in and fill what other voids are out there. And then I loved the idea that, Anita said, particularly if we have Baltimore County-based employers who have needs and opportunities, right? Let's build out the training supports so that we, the best way to get a job is to connect people to the ones that already exist, right? So if we know that there are jobs that exist, but there are gaps, that's something where I think we very easily can and should be sort of that end of the road, connecting our businesses to those opportunities, to the residents who would want to work.
Okay, thank you. All right, continuing with this first question of what challenges do you expect to face in the coming months and will persist over a longer time frame? Beth Reingold.
Hello, this is Beth Reingold. I am the president of the Pikesville Owings Mills Chamber of Commerce. And I guess I would echo what Karen said earlier. In Pikesville specifically, we are worried about vacancies and obviously revitalization. And in Owings Mills, our presence tends to be bringing the community together and having events. And so we're just eager to get back to that when it's safe.
Okay. All right, thank you. Rob DeFord.
Sorry, Leonard, I had to unmute. Thank you. I will, I guess, give you the benefit of my video while I'm talking as well. And thank you very much for this opportunity to comment. We grow and make wine, and we also are very engaged in public hospitality because it helps build our brand. And during COVID, we've had to severely curtail our activities in that area, but we have felt a very strong demand from people to get out into the country. And I find quite often I'm the lone voice in the room that is familiar with the more rural parts of the county, and not only the needs of the more rural parts, but also the opportunities that lie here, from big ag shipping corn and soybeans to Asia right now, to smaller businesses like mine that are involved in what's called value-added agriculture, creating products that we grow on the farm, adding value to them and selling them at full retail. It's a tremendous opportunity for the county to enhance the public's connection to local agriculture, because people want to know their farmer, they want to know where their food comes from, they want to know it's healthy. And there's a real opportunity here through the Ag Center in Hunt Valley, creating a firm relationship with the group that knowledgeable farmers who have had a long-standing relationship there, to start building this rapport between the public and agriculture. But the second thing I think is tourism. One of my concerns, we have had to curtail visitation here to be safe. And while there's demand, once competition, full-blown competition comes back into the marketplace and people can go back to restaurants, movie theaters, public gatherings, I think that we actually will see the backside of this. And I know that the county executive is very bullish on tourism, very interested in tourism. And I know this, I sit on the Tourism Advisory Council. I feel it's super important to get the tourism plan right, to know what product we're offering, to market it well, to brand it well. And we have a Tourism Advisory Council, which I hope will have a robust opportunity to contribute our best thinking to the development of this tourism plan, because I think Baltimore County is a sleeping giant. I think we have a real opportunity. And a lot of these problems I'm hearing from people, I think could be helped by having a really strong local a program that attracts locals to visit their own county and dine, sleep here, and play here.
So okay, so really, Rob, your comment addresses both challenges and you started on the recommendations, and we'll pick more up on that a little later. But just if we capture just the challenge right,
yeah,
really connecting the people of the county to the agricultural sector, that needs to that's a problem, because if they're not connected, then they really don't understand what the issues are that are faced by the businesses that operate there. That sounds like one. And the other one, you mentioned tourism, and when you're looking at the back end of the recovery process, it would behoove us to be ready. So
Correct.
that when everybody does go back, the challenge then, as we would frame it, is making sure that we are ready for the recovery and the really getting out and about boom that we know everybody is just craving to have.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got it. You very well summed up. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, Robert DeShiel.
I think, good afternoon, Leonard and
Good afternoon.
and Mr. County Executive and other participants. I think I don't represent an organization. I'm an attorney. I represent a number of clients in the county and those desiring to establish or reestablish businesses in the county, which I encourage mightily over the last few months. The biggest challenge is figuring out how to make decisions, because the traditional basis for making financial decisions from either an equity or lender point of view, that is asset based, either from a collateral point of view or from the point of view of projected cash flow, those principles don't apply now. I mean, nobody knows what anything is worth in this environment. There's no way, particularly in the clients that I have, as you mentioned, in the restaurant and hospitality industry, they have absolutely no way of predicting with any degree of certainty what the future really is going to look like. Because now we're dealing, even when you fully reopen the businesses, and I applaud the county executive for moving in that direction. The fact is, we're dealing with habits. We're dealing with consumer habits. And once people change their habits, once people get accustomed to eating at home and popping their own popcorn and frying their own chicken, I mean, those things are hard to change, particularly when they realize on top of it all that they're saving money doing it. So then that means from the point of view of a lender or a potential equity investor, what factors do we now look at to determine what's an acceptable risk? What do we can't use the traditional things. And I was happy to hear the county executive say that part of that the goal here is not to return necessarily to what was, because what was didn't work for a lot of people. And doing that was exacerbate the problem that previously exists. I confess, I don't know the answer to the issue, but I'm working on it every day because I've got clients who are pressing me every day to try to figure it out. And anybody that can offer me some help in that regard. The problem is, what factors do we now use to decide what risks are acceptable for making loans, for making grants, or for making investments? That is the biggest issue that I'm facing among my clients right now.
Okay, that's a good one. Very good one. And last word on this first question of the biggest challenges over the coming months and that could possibly persist on the longer time frame goes to Tasha Gresham James.
Hello, everyone. And sorry, my video, of course, cut out on me. So technology, this works most of the time, though. But yeah, so I'm Tasha Gresham James. I'm with Dundalk Renaissance. We are a nonprofit community development corporation in Baltimore County. Of course, our Dundalk Renaissance, our physical location is in the county, but we also do work on the city side as well. Some of the things, we are also a Main Street business. Well, we have a designated Maryland Main Street in Dundalk. And one of a couple of concerns with some of our small businesses is really just, and they've learned to pivot, and with help from both the county and the state, we are able to get them money in hand to kind of help expand their ability to go online. Because we know, and I know many of the panelists mentioned this, that we're going to be, people are going to still be in a virtual space. And they're still going to shop online, so they may not get out to physically come into our smaller businesses. But one great thing that is definitely happening is that we are working with them to get them online. Some still pose a problem, just the technology, the gap in how that works, conducting business online when they're just normally a brick and mortar. So they're used to their customers coming inside of the location. But they have pivoted and they're learning. A lot of them are learning how to do business online and to do it effectively. So I think that is definitely something that we are looking forward to in the future, and how well that's actually really working for some of them. Another concern of our businesses, and this is just in general, because we do have a lot of community building events, and unfortunately, we couldn't gather, right? So a lot of people are wondering what that will look like in the future. How are we gonna, a lot of it will be outdoors. Luckily, it was already outdoors, but how do we still get the crowds, or how are they able to get the amount of volume of people that those events would normally bring? But of course, now because of social distancing and masking, what will that look like? So that is some of their concerns. But I think, honestly, continuing with the guidelines of social distancing will definitely help. It just, of course, it will limit the amount of people that they can get at one outdoor event, that, and particularly the footprint of like certain parks or certain spaces are limited. But I do agree with Mr. DeShields, because this actually came up with another potential small business. Her concern was, a lot of lenders are changing how they are, some of the requirements for business loans and things like that. And so I think it's just really about making sure that we support them and making sure that they have the proper documentation to know really what's needed. There's a lot of help that has come to our businesses, so we are grateful for that, and they're grateful for that. But definitely, I think we will see this virtual space still continuing, but helping our businesses get online to do online business effectively will definitely help. And yeah, definitely continuing to educate our newer small businesses that have evolved or have started during this pandemic to help them get the necessary funding that they will need to really start and launch strong.
Okay, thank you very much, Josh, for that. Now, Mr. County Executive, I guess you can probably capture the last part of this first question, in the sense of we will be virtual for a while. The businesses need to figure out how to effectively work virtually, and as we get ready to go back, we need to have a plan for being able to accommodate the interest that's going to be there. Do you have any responses or further questions on that front?
Well, the county executive had to jump for another
Oh,
meeting.
okay.
Maybe defer to Madam
Liz?
CAO. I know
Yes, Madam
you
CAO.
have tons of thoughts.
Okay. Madam CAO.
Thank you, Director Howie, and good afternoon, everyone. I think that from the standpoint of active engagement with businesses to provide them with the technical assistance that they need, particularly as we begin to figure out what is the new normal. It's true, over the last, even prior to the pandemic, the shift to online shopping and e-commerce has changed the face of how consumers do business. So ensuring that there are opportunities to learn more and expand capacity around that topic is something that we really should consider and look at how we as county government through Director Howie's operation can be of support, particularly knowing that, as Mr. Daschle said, people change behaviors, gradually or if forced to, like the pandemic forced us to do. So I think that's an area that we should look at and should explore. And I'll also say our effort in working with small and minority business, women-owned businesses, to ensure that opportunities to engage with county government even, and the opportunities we have, individuals know about how to become certified with the state and with the city. We have lots of opportunities, but this is a time to truly think outside of the box and follow the trending of how consumers do business and then retool. And we hope to be here to help you retool.
All right, thank you for that, Madam CEO Rogers. That's actually a wonderful segue into the second question. But before we get there, Elizabeth, did you have any comments or questions for the panel members on this first question?
Well, I'm sorry that I jumped on a little bit late. I think that what I've heard so far is sort of a baseline that we want to understand better is what's changed over the last year, and what parts of it are permanent and what parts of it can we pivot from. And I know we're thinking internally in county government about how to deploy funding, how to use some of our best innovative thinking and lend it to this moment. But we really do need to hear what the perspectives are from the business community and some of the other communities that we'll be speaking with through these roundtables in the coming weeks.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, second question is really where you get to break out your wish list. And so the second question is, we have listened intently to the governor and to the county executive provide updates on the pandemic, the healthcare response, and on the opening status of our economy. As we move into recovery, we think it is fair that business leaders and members of the public continue to receive the support needed to get back to some semblance of normalcy. What can government do to best support our businesses, their employees, and their customers as we move into the next phases of economic recovery? Okay, let's start with, let's go in reverse order. Tasha.
Oh, this is great. A wish list, right?
Your wish list.
You know, it's so many of one of the ways to support I think definitely a stimulus, that has definitely helped people kind of generate some more money and getting it out to our economy and just getting the money flowing again. But definitely I love that Anita mentioned, because we also kind of deal with this a little bit more on our housing side, of how we can better support smaller, or not just smaller businesses, but businesses who are looking for, employees. Because, one of the things that this pandemic definitely brought up for smaller businesses with limited staff, they, most of them are one or two, people in a store. If anyone gets sick, you're down one whole person, or you're actually closed in some people's cases because you're the only one in person in the store. So I think, just again, looking for ways to kind of another, or even a similar to the PPP that we've, that a lot of businesses were able to get for payroll protection, just to kind of help with when they are limited staff in a business and they don't have anywhere else to go. Instead of closing their doors, is there a way that we can kind of help them increase their staff capacity in case of, whether it's a part-time staff person. But I think that would definitely, if we can continue that, I know it's not a long-term wish, but if it could be for just understanding that just in case, people still not all being vaccinated, or, well, we're definitely making sure that they have access to the vaccinations. But again, just making sure that people have that support. So that they're able to either hire additional staff, increase their capacity. So if they need to, someone is sick, they're able to still continue with their business and not have to close their doors. That would be definitely the most immediate wish. I have a longer list, but I won't take up more time.
Okay, thank you. But that in and of itself is an interesting concept, that your wish list includes a function where the county can support really a temporary employment agency type function to accommodate immediate needs that businesses have. Now, obviously, the county is not providing that service, but just the fact that we need to think about that, because staffing is low, you might need immediate assistance, and the sooner you can get people in there to provide the services, the sooner you can get back to some semblance of business. So that's really a good one, really good one. Robert. Is he on mute? Robert DeShields?
Yeah, he's muted.
Robert, you're on mute. Robert?
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. I kept clicking on the wrong button. Sorry. All right. I think that what I would wish for is that the word will go out to every single county employee that comes into contact with any member of the public at any level, that this is a friendly place. I would send out the word to every county employee. You've got to exhibit two things when the public comes to you for help. One, patience, a smile, and nobody leaves the building without getting the help they came for, or at least getting the help they need. Because what people are going to need, what people want more than anything else is, first of all, when it comes to government, they want to know that they're talking to people who really care. That's number one. It's just like children. If you don't love them, you can't teach them. So they got to believe that the people who are there to provide service actually want to be at work, and they care about them, and they're going to exhibit the kind of patience that folks need, because they don't know really which way to go to. Then I would say that we would direct the need and the assistance in the way that it actually helps people. We have a habit of helping people to the point where it makes us feel good for providing the help, regardless of whether or not it gives people the amount of help or kind of help that they really need. We've got to discontinue that practice and keep providing assistance, and provide as much assistance as they really, really need. And that's going to require an individual case-by-case analysis. It's not going to be one size fits all. It's not going to be a single one, a $5,000 program, and that's the max. Somebody may need 10,000, and somebody else may need 2. So I think flexibility and approach would be the other component of my assessment.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, Rob.
Let's see. Rob DeFord, you meant, Leonard? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
Rob DeFord.
good. Okay, so now we're on to the sort of recommendations for answers to the problems. Just circling back, I know I gave some of these prematurely, but on the visitation front, I think that people during COVID have learned a lot about what their region has to offer, the county has to offer, which is a wealth of experiences, both sort of in nature, in communities, albeit socially distanced. They've learned a lot about where they live. And I think we need to lock that in if possible. I think actually the future could be very bright if we can lock in this new habit of spending your tourism dollars locally. So I'll repeat what I said earlier, which is having a really good tourism plan that we can put into action soon and fund it is my first recommendation. Secondly, there was a committee that submitted a report to the county council and was voted favorably by the council last November, called the Value Added Building Committee. And it had to do with establishing non-traditional businesses on farms in the county. And this can be a major employer for the region. Other counties have kind of eaten our lunch on this. And if we heed the recommendations that have been voted favorably by the county council, and I can get into more detail, Leonard, with you at some future point, but there's some very specific recommendations from this committee that deal with land use, building codes, promoting agriculture in the region. I think the county would be a tremendous beneficiary, and the citizens of the county would really appreciate it as they became more aware of these resources that are at their disposal. So the two are kind of linked, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, good.
That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Beth.
I was so afraid you were going to call on me because I was still gathering my thoughts. Can you come back to me?
I can definitely come back to you.
Thank you.
Okay, Jessica.
I think the biggest recommendation or biggest item on my wish list that would have the largest impact is as we become, the vaccines become more readily available, is we're actually out and in the communities. And I think that's where state and local governments can have the biggest impact, is reaching out into the community to make sure we are educating the public as well as vaccinating the public, because if we're going to reopen and open safely, then we need to be in the community on the streets, making access and education a priority.
Okay. So just with that concept, recovery is truly a long-term process, is what you're saying. We cannot take our foot off the gas, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Karen.
I have a few from several of our members. One is to provide financial incentives for renting and or renovating vacant commercial space in high visibility areas with significant vacancies. Another is to expedite regulatory requirements so that businesses can get back and open quickly, especially in the area of permits and licensing. Another is to for the county to be prepared for the amount of need that will be there and to hire additional staff to help manage these changes and things that will need to occur. And another is to potentially create a marketing campaign to promote the community or to encourage the community to come back out safely when it is safe to come back out, to gather safely when it's time. And that's all of mine.
Okay. Anita.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I want to say, Director Howard, I think that the county is doing such a great job. And as Robert was speaking about caring, I was reminded of a quote that says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So some kind of care campaign would be to let people know, because people are hurting. There are a lot of people that are hurting. They're going through a lot, and we have to continue to educate them, keep them educated. As Jessica said, that would be keeping people educated and keeping the lines of communication open from a grassroots perspective, kind of what we're doing now on social media and the different platforms. And of course, providing the stimulus relief, because sometimes our population, people come in, they don't have child care, they don't have transportation, they have some basic needs that are not met before we can get to that next step of what we really need. We really need people to want to come to work, to have those soft skills, time management, communication, that want to come to work, that want to be here. But if those other needs are not met, they may not be able to do that. And we want people that really want to work and see the opportunity. So I think that those foundational things need to be there in order for people to really be able to show up and be present. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And And I think we can go back to Beth.
Yes, thank you so much. So what I wanted to say is the county recently, Leonard, made it possible for those renewing their liquor licenses. I think they can do so. Remind me, it's either at a reduced fee or they don't have to pay. It's something significant to help those who are selling wine and liquor. And our restaurants would really appreciate any kind of gesture that the county could extend to them in terms of permits. Our chamber also runs a farmers market, and gratefully last year we were open and essential. We anticipate even more vendors applying this year, and of course they all have to apply for permits. So I think if the county hasn't already, and the county usually thinks way ahead of these things, but I think that that a lot of vendors are going to be applying for those permits, and trying to get them quickly, and just being ready for the needs of small businesses in that kind of regard, with permits, applications, and either reducing fees or providing financial help to those businesses that will need it.
Okay. Thank you. County Administrative Officer Rogers and Elizabeth Sachs. Many of what we just heard, I think, is well within a lot of the your wheelhouses, things that we've touched upon various points in time. Anything that resonated or that you would like a little more clarification on?
Well, I'll start. First and foremost, we definitely value customer service. Government exists to serve the community and the individuals we're charged to support. That's why we exist. So, Mr. Dashiell, you know that customer service is first and foremost in our minds, and we understand, definitely understand that. So thank you for that reminder. For all of the colleagues who have spoken today with respect to, reiterating how much people are hurting, we just want to let you know that we're also looking at, other avenues for assisting in ways that we may not have thought about before, in terms of counseling support, mental health issues. We have a whole area that the subcabinet is looking at from that perspective, with respect to how we can be more flexible and add more assistance. The idea, the recommendation around considering the permitting piece that was extended to those who sell alcohol, we'll be happy to take that back and look and see what we could do. These really great, thoughtful recommendations for the subcabinet to consider. And we definitely look forward to working through and thinking through some of those items. The subcabinet will recommend and continue to work with you as a community, because we're all in this together.
Okay, thank you. And Elizabeth, as Director of Government Reform and Strategic Initiatives, anything stand out?
Yeah, so I was reflecting on the comment about supporting workers as they return to work. And I know we have another discussion about that very topic, but it does touch on the fact that there are always supports that people need in order to be in an office setting, in order to have kids and even sometimes other elderly family members cared for. And so we were mindful of a lot of those challenges and barriers prior to the pandemic. And I think it'll be helpful even after this roundtable to understand what's new, what's different. Again, what's changed, because we're ready, willing, and able to address these types of things. But we want to know, what's most pressing as we move into this recovery phase, and what we might assume from the time before, but what might be different going forward when it comes to supporting employers through their workforce in this recovery.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, last question area. Thank you all for hanging in there. Your input has been really insightful, and I know this last question will produce the exact same level. We know that this pandemic has not impacted all businesses equally. While many businesses have closed or downsized significantly, others have experienced steady or even record growth. When you think of your business or the businesses of those you represent, do you see opportunities for recovery and growth? And if so, where? And we will start with Jessica.
I think in our case, our situation is a little unique since majority of the folks that my organization represents are grocery retail and food processing. I've seen a very large increase and boom, not just with folks shopping, but with staffing. And I think now it's trying to find out what the new norm is. And now that we've all survived the toilet paper crisis of 2020, I think it's really just trying to figure out how we support some of those industries where we realized there are, I mean, we've always known there are opportunities there, but I think the pandemic has really shed some light on those, especially with our food processing industry in the state. So I think taking a deeper dive into some of those industries we don't really look at often and reaching out to them directly to see what support they need as we move forward is going to be a continued conversation.
Curious, do you have a sense of how our farmers are doing?
We don't have anyone in an agricultural industry where we're at currently is with food processing, but I know we are working with a lot of the community groups in the farming industry on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, and where we've seen the impact with them as far as with the closures of a lot of the farmers markets and the reopening and restructuring there, with the increased demand in some of the goods and services that they provide, and then the lack of workforce based on positive cases and the impact that those cases have had on folks. We've seen the workforce in those industries impacted.
Okay. All right, thank you. Tasha.
I'm with Jessica in the sense that if we can, just continue to support our, I mean, yes, we know that some businesses haven't, some have thrived, some have closed, but many of our Main Street businesses really have kind of stayed steady. Like I said, kind of shifting them to the online version of their stores has helped a great deal. So we can continue supporting that technical assistance in that space as far as just helping them to be able to just further their business online is great. And then, I mean, I really have to say, just during this time, a lot of people have kind of just learned how to reinvent their business a little bit too. So just continuing to support businesses, whether it's technical assistance, but also just helping them, again, with the employment space. And I mean, there's just a lot of other ways. Some businesses really have thrived. I think it is just because a lot of them have figured out new ways. So, so it's just, actually, I just lost my train of thought because I was getting ready to say something else. But yeah, just again, with the continued support of a lot of our businesses, whether they're big or small, but taking it case by case for each person.
Okay. You know what actually comes to mind is a concept where you have sort of an incubator type concept to spur thought in how to reinvent yourself. So it's not just about making a new product. It's you really have to rethink how you conduct your operations to survive in many different types of environments. And that's one thing that's this year has taught us, definitely. Thank you. Robert DeFord.
Leonard, several things, and I think this does echo what I've heard others say, but with respect to your comment just now, we had to change a lot of our procedures, and we've learned that some of them are preferable to the old way we used to do things. And we're planning to continue that. So with respect to your question, where do we see opportunities in the recovery? Well, one is by having improved our interaction with the customer and the hospitality we offer. We think that's going to resonate and end up bringing better visitation out to our winery. Secondly, I think that local visitation is now is kind of on the rise, and also buying local. So I see both of those trends as being positive, as long as we continue to serve the customer well and produce a good product. I think that the future is actually quite bright. And we've been hurt by the pandemic, but it's not lethal. It's not mortal. And I'm quite optimistic about what lies on the other side.
Okay, good. Thank you. Karen.
Sorry. We also feel that things are optimistic. We feel that this has been an emotional time for many or for everyone, and that people are really in the mindset of wanting to help others. And I think the Owings Mills Corporate Roundtable we used the grant money from the county to create a campaign called Shop Local, Buy Local. And we really felt like people want to come together and help each other. So we think that that's really a great opportunity for growth.
Okay, thank you. The buy local themes is still very strong. That's great. Anita.
I, like others, we are very optimistic here at Gray & Son. We are construction company, as I said, and we are considered vital. One of the areas that we had to stretch in was the virtual space. So there were, we work with laborers and we work with project managers, and so we had to figure out how do we expand in that area. So we've been steady, but the biggest need, I think, is helping our employees navigate through this very challenging time, because there has been a lot of fear and anxiety. And I think that our population is getting better, but there's always opportunities for growth. And I think environments like this and sharing information and educating and keeping people abreast of what's really going on, it is really helpful. So again, thank you for this opportunity.
Okay. Beth.
Yes. So I think that Robert DeFore just really spoke eloquently. As a Chamber of Commerce president, this is exactly what I see happening too. And I feel like small business and shop local, I feel like we have this amazing window of opportunity. And what it hangs on is superior customer service and strong products. So just as Robert said, so that is what we are actually communicating to our small businesses, is that people who have been cooped up for a year, they're actually sick of shopping online for most of their products. They want that interaction. They're really looking for that. So that's number one. Number two, the industries or business areas we saw thrive during the pandemic, and this will probably provoke a chuckle and no surprise, were our liquor stores and our cannabis dispensaries were quite successful through the pandemic. And all joking aside, people turned to what they needed to help them cope. So I think that any kind of business that can somehow also offer wellness or mental health support or whatever, as sort of a package, I think they would be smart to do that, because as many have said here today, people are still hurting. And we want to be a very supportive county as Baltimore County is. Lastly, I just want to say that we are talking to our restaurant members, and you know, those businesses that survived were able to pivot. And I love this idea of an incubator. And here's the thing, and I don't want to sound like a doomsday person, but if you read the research and we really try to stay on top of it, this could possibly be the first of other pandemics. We really hope not, right? But we have said to businesses, specifically restaurants, you know, keep your carry out strategies on hand, and think outside of the box, quite literally, and really plan for outdoor dining as just a thing of the future. Like, people who are easing back into public life or whatever is on the horizon, it is a very good idea to include in your strategic plan outdoor dining for the future. And I'm going to stop there.
Okay, well, thank you. It almost makes me want to, although we can't do it now, conduct a field trip to a warmer weather climate year round and just see what full-time outdoor dining looks like, and take back as many of those concepts as make sense in our climate.
Leonard, can I just add,
Sure.
you really don't have to go farther than DC, believe it or not. And I was there last Sunday, and what restaurants have done there for colder climates with like little huts and tents and almost like miniature greenhouses is incredible. So I'm going to stop.
No, I've actually dined in one of those. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Robert, last word on our questions.
Infrastructure, agriculture, preservation of physical assets, and home economics. And let me tell you what all those mean. My view is that most people, if they do achieve it at all, will achieve economic stability in their lives by the earnings that they can make from wages and salaries and employment. And this goes to obviously to the preservation of the family. Infrastructure, the president, I think, at some point is going to get through new legislation, which is going to pump a lot of money into the construction area, into highways, bridges, and that sort of thing. And as it has done in the past, the construction industry will lead the way to economic recovery, because it will provide both short and long-term employment, and it will do so at wages that allow people to be able to have to work only one job to support their family, so they can actually be at home at night to help raise those children and not operate on a revolving door. Agriculture is critical. Agriculture, being able to teaching people to be able to grow their own produce. I really am thinking about the county. I'm going to call it the county farm. I'm not really sure what it is, but out near Cuba Road, I was reading something about the project that was started years ago that basically it's floundered in the sense that it's never really been turned into something that was either profitable or supplied food stuff for a great many people. And you and the county executive know what I'm talking about in that regard. Preservation of physical assets. We've got to figure out how, knowing that everything in life is pretty much cyclical, we can't act like the buildings and the brick and mortar buildings we have today are not going to be ever needed again. The question is, what do we do with them in the meantime? Now, hospitals and medical care facilities are dealt with that by turning to urgent care. Through urgent care, they were able to generate revenues to fill what were unfilled beds. Of course, there are no such thing as unfilled beds now. The pandemic helped to help that along. But the point is, we have to figure out alternative means. For example, schools. The answer to an unused school building can't always be to regard it as surplus property and get rid of it, because one of these days, if you keep living long enough, you're going to need that school building again as a school building. So we got to figure out how to preserve those assets for the uses that they were intended. And then finally, shop and home economics. Leonard, when I was in school, even though you were in the so-called fast track, the economic track, I had to take shop. I had to take home economics. Now, I can't, don't ask me to fix your plumbing, but I do know what end of a wrench goes on the nut. And I do know my way around a sewing machine. We've got to tell our children and teach our children that being able to do things with their hands doesn't make them second class. We've got to tell them and teach them that college is not for everybody, and that going into vocational schools is not a second class, is not the route for those who couldn't cut the mustard to go to college. Anita will find new employees if we begin to teach them that that's a field and area that everybody should go to if that is your gift. So with that, I'm done.
Well, Robert, I must say that in my defense, I took shop, electricity, and home ec, all required
Yes.
when I was in the junior high school ages, so grades. So and I carried those skills with me. I carry those skills with me to this day.
Yes.
I learned how to bake cookies in home ec, and I still bake the cookies today. I know how to sew and all that stuff. So you're right. Those are skills that we have surplused over time, but they wind up being critical life skills that people just don't have the way they used to, and they have to just pay for the service or get it some other way. All right. Well, thank you. Great responses, Madam CAO. Any comments or observations off of this last round of questions?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank everyone. This conversation is stimulating and definitely engendering lots of thoughts in terms of discussions and direction we could go. What I will say to you that ensuring that we have a workforce in the skill areas that you're talking about, we know that just inside of government, how difficult it is to find certain skills, the technical skills that we're talking about, plumbing, carpentry, those kinds of skills that we really do have to partner closely with community college, well, K through 12, but community college as well, because those are skill areas that are in demand now. And just thinking about the aging of the population, we really do have to look at it because you're feeling it in the private sector as well. So ensuring that we have programs that are coming online, and even now as we continue to plan for recovery, looking long term. I'll also say this last part about cyclical pieces of time and how we just evolve as a culture. And I do believe that we're prayerful there won't be anytime soon that we will experience other kinds of issues, not of if it's a natural disaster or this was a health crisis, but we should take the lessons learned from this pandemic to ensure that we're planning for the future by doing some of the things that you all are talking about, which are just innovative and thoughtful. And I just say from the government standpoint, partnering with you, that's a big part of the CE's vision, that we do things in partnership to ensure that we're meeting the needs of the community now and in the future. What we do now will definitely have impact on the future. I will also say from an infrastructure standpoint, won't forget water and sewer service. Can't forget, just did a full assessment of our solid waste program here in the county. All of these infrastructural pieces where we will need community engagement, but also innovative thinking on how we address those issues. So they fall in that infrastructure bucket as well.
Okay.
It's been my pleasure. These are great innovative thoughts.
All right. Thank you. Elizabeth, do you have any closing thoughts for us?
No, I just want to thank everybody for participating and to note that this is the beginning of a conversation. So I really hope that even after today, if you have other thoughts, you'll email them to Jasmine and Leonard. And as we've said, we're planning for this recovery. We need input and welcome ongoing feedback as well. So thank you all very, very much for participating today.
Okay, everyone, thank you so much. And for those of you who have interacted with us on other levels, other commissions, boards, look forward to seeing you in the near future. Everybody take care.
Peace out.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you for your leadership.